Hey there, Cheryl here. Welcome to the Limitless Leader live show. I'm so excited I can't get it out. Today is a very special day. Really excited to have Susan Poser, who is VP Culture and Engagement at Oracle. Susan, thank you so much for taking the time to be here.
Oh, thanks so much, Cheryl. I am so excited to be here with you.
So before we get into a lot of the amazing work that you're doing, how you got to your role, which is a lot about the topic that we're going to talk about today and how to speak up and be an advocate for yourself, I thought I'd ask a little bit about, was there anything that transpired earlier in your life as a young person that either inspired you to greatness or maybe something that was difficult that you overcame, or what sparked your interest in shaping you to where you are today?
Well, it's really funny. My very first job out of college, I went to work for a manufacturing company. I graduated with a degree in finance. I went to work for a manufacturing company, and it was my boss was a woman, and she was the finance leader, and then the accounting leader was also a woman, and we had a male secretary. And I thought, wow, this is great, right? And then shortly after that, everything changed. And I thought, wow, things are really progressive. But then I realized after, I think I was only in that role for about a year, and then things changed and it kind of reset to what we would normally see, right? A lot of men in different roles and very few women. And I think that's when I kind of realized, gosh, there's such a huge opportunity to really, create more visibility and leadership in women in these types of roles, because I thought it was so cool, and I thought that's how the world was until because that was my first job out of college. I thought, wow, this is how the world is. It's so wonderful. Then I found out that's not the case. I mean, one of my first jobs at Oracle, I think the leadership team was all men except for me. And then as we grew, I think in our first 50 people, there were all men except 3 women. And I always laugh because the 3 women, all of us were named Susan. But, I started to see that the world wasn't like it was when I first started my job. It was not like all these women in leadership roles. It was very few women in leadership roles and very few women of different ethnicities in leadership roles. Like, I was really lucky when my first job out of college, my first boss, she was Kathy Lee. She was Asian. And I just thought, gosh, this is such a wonderful world. Like, this is like what I thought it would be like. And then I quickly learned that the world really wasn't like that. It was like totally different than that.
Yeah. So then what then shaped you to be really passionate about culture and engagement? Because some people could get a little bit distraught about that, where you come in, you're optimistic, then you're like, oh, no, actually, most of the people are white men, and that's just how it is. So what kind of spurred you to greatness rather than had you get just kind of down and frustrated?
Well, I think those are the types of things that excite me, right? Is I just saw that as an opportunity instead of something to get discouraged about. It was an opportunity to see what could we do, right? How can we see more women of color in different roles? And that got me much more involved in our employee resource groups at Oracle to see what we could do to build leadership, because especially coming from an Asian background, a lot of times, we're told, oh, your work will, you shouldn't brag about yourself. You shouldn't, all your work, hard work will show up in what you do. You don't need to talk about it. This whole shameless self-promotion, that's really frowned upon, right? In a lot of Asian cultures, right? It was really, be humble, be quiet. And we really, with our Asian leadership organization here at Oracle, we really wanted to change that with our women leaders, as well as all the Asians, not just women, but Asians in general, right? That you need to speak up, and that you need to talk about your value and what you bring to the table, and you need to talk about your contributions and your accomplishments, because there isn't anybody else out there that is really, advocating for you. You need to be your best advocate. I mean, you might have some great, I've had some great advocates, leader sponsors, whatever you want to call them, mentors here at Oracle. But at the end of the day, you're your best advocate. You're the one that can talk about what you can do and what you can bring to the table. And, so I think it's important for everybody to kind of build that skill of speaking up and advocating for themselves.
Yes, 100%. And I really like to highlight something that you said that's so important is that, we're especially like women, especially women, like you mentioned, from not just your like culture, but a lot of different cultures. There's cultural indoctrinations that we've been told and we've witnessed, right? We've witnessed with our mothers and with the women in our lives. And so it takes practice to not just hear and understand that, but to do it. And so sometimes it really helps within these groups to have, pods, in other words, these safe spaces where
Mhm.
they break out and say, I love doing this. It's my dream to do that. Myself or my team has accomplished this because I think it's kind of retraining by doing.
Yeah.
And so I love that that you brought that up. And so a lot of times people might look at you with your role as, VP and think that you were just born into the world, as a VP and assume either that or it was smooth sailing. But was there ever a time when you either doubted yourself or things got a little challenging, but you persevered anyway? Would you mind sharing a
Well, I
story?
doubt myself all the time. So, how I got this role, and that's why, and I'll share why I doubt myself is, um, we had a change in our go-to-market a few years ago, and I was doing special projects at the time, and I was asked to do a special project to help with the change or the communications for this whole change in go-to-market. And one of the sales leaders at the time, after we had this whole change, was left without someone to help him support him on the communication side. So he asked if I would be interested to help him on the communication side, and I thought, no, I'm not really interested in doing communications. And he said, well, what would you be interested in doing? And I said, well, let me think about it and I'll get back to you. And I went back and I thought, one of the special projects I had done was working with our transformation of our solution engineering group. And one of the things we had done was around employee engagement because we had a huge attrition problem with our solution engineers. And I thought, gosh, I really enjoyed that. That was really a lot of fun to do this stuff around employee engagement, finding ways to get our employees engaged, get them excited that it's, what we want to keep, sometimes it's not always compensation that keeps an employee at a company. It could be some of the extra perks, right? Like we were just talking earlier about returning back to the office, right? We're not forcing people back to the office. That's a nice perk, not to have to go to an office if you don't want to go to an office. So there's, other benefits, right? So what I did a bunch of research and put together a proposal that said, what I would love to do is something around customer and employee engagement and how if we can get our employees really excited about what we're doing here and get them engaged and really passionate about being part of Oracle, it will translate in how they engage with their customers and what they do with their customers. And he said, oh, that sounds great, but you have to do communications too. And so that's how I ended up with the job that I had. And then just recently we've split that off and now I'm focused on culture and employee engagement. But that's how I ended up with what I had. Was I pitched this idea and really I have no experience in this area. But it was an area that I was really passionate about because I really, I had done some work with the employee resource groups. I had done this task force prior to this, and it was something I was just really excited about. But, you talked about, doubting myself. We have I'm in the line of business, and a lot of companies, when you look at culture and engagement, that's usually an HR function. And I'm not in HR, and we've got some great HR resources from talent development to our HR business partners. And I partner with them all day long. And, they've got great knowledge to bring to this area. Where they lack is sometimes their ability to create a program and execute. And that's where my strength is really, packaging up programs and executing and delivering on programs. So we partner really well together. But I think, sometimes I do doubt myself, right? Because I come up with some ideas and then I'm thinking, is that really solving the right problem? And, but fortunately I have I meet with my HR and my OTD folks on a weekly basis and bounce the ideas around with them to make sure. And I do a lot of reading and I listen to podcasts and folks like yourself to kind of learn some best practices and things, because I think I'm constantly learning in this job, because it's not a job that I have an education. I have a master's in finance, an undergrad in one in journalism, one in marketing, but nothing in the HR realm. It's just something that I was just really excited about.
So I really wanted to spotlight again something that you said that was super important, and that is like something that you're passionate about, that you're good at, because usually if we're passionate about something, we're pretty good at it, but that you didn't have any experience in, but you just went for it. So for anybody watching this, especially not to kind of call all of us women out all at once, we're typically not that great at doing this. We're box checkers. So in other words, typically having to check, let's say, according to McKinsey, 8 out of 10 boxes, when our male counterparts will throw their hat in the arena with 3. So I think following Susan's lead on this, and if there's something that you're passionate about that maybe you don't have experience, you don't have the education or what have you, to just go for it. And before we came on live, we were talking about this story, and you're also talking about, you got the green flag to do it, but there's a little pushback as far as how it was going to get done. So can you share a little bit about that, and then how it all ended up for you?
Yeah. So what I was sharing was that, so we, agreed that I would come over and do this role. And because it was something that we hadn't really had anybody doing at Oracle before. And I was the senior director in my current role. And they said, well, we'd like to have you come over laterally, because it's an undefined job. You haven't done it before. You need to prove it out. So we just want you to come over laterally, no increase or anything, just with that, come over and do the job. And I just paused and I said, no, I'm not interested in doing that. I've been here for 20 years. I think I've proved myself out enough. And I actually had this experience probably maybe 5 years prior in my career, where it was a similar role that the VP at the time said, we need you to prove it out. And I busted my butt and proved it out. And then we had an org change and I didn't get the promotion. So I thought, I'm not doing that again, right? I'm not going to go through and bust my butt, prove it out, and then have a change in organization, not get the promotion. And then, of course, I think they brought someone else, they brought a male in and promoted him pretty quickly on the last role. But anyway, so this time around, I'm like, I'm not doing that again. And I told him that I'm not, I've proven myself 20 years here at Oracle. I'm not going to prove myself out. I think that, I've created a brand of being able to execute. I think that that should, my reputation should precede itself. I'm taking a big risk, right? By taking this jump into creating this new function and moving into this organization versus staying in my comfy job of what I had, right? And so I just said, no, I'm not interested in proving it out. I'd like the promotion and the increase in compensation, or I'll just stay where I'm at. And I had a great executive vice president that really went to bat for me and got HR to make the change.
Wow, take a bow. So I think
I encourage everyone to do it. Fight for yourself.
So that is a perfect segue into the importance of speaking up and being your own advocate, because it is, it's also another, and I wish I knew the exact statistics, but a very large number of women tend to accept a salary that's offered to them and not challenge it, for a new role, whereas men tend to challenge a little bit more. So I think the message here is to really own your worth and understand your value. So, and understand too how it's a win-win. Not just it's something that you deserve, which obviously in this case it was definitely something that you deserve. But I also want to talk a moment about it really was a win-win. It wasn't all about I've been here 20 years, I've proven myself, I deserve this. I mean, that was an important part of it. But, in the role with the title, it really was a win-win, because it was going to allow you to really optimize the role for yourself and for your organization. So can you also elaborate a little bit on how it helped Oracle and your team? Because I think that's a really important thing to articulate when we are speaking up and, advocating for ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely. So, when I put the plan together and made the proposal to the executive VP, I put together a plan of what I thought we needed to do based on the information that I had and how I could help the organization. Right? I looked at some of the information in terms of our early career folks and the attrition we were having with early career folks because we bring them into a sales role and sometimes they don't want to do sales. So, how do we let them build their network outside of sales to be able to explore other opportunities while they're still here at Oracle so that we keep them here at Oracle because we made a huge investment in them. So I created a program called Talent Exchange, which allows them to kind of do an internal internship with other groups within Oracle to build their network as well as build their skill sets in different areas like marketing or finance or development, wherever they're, some of them graduate with degrees in UX design and they want to try that out, right? So it gives them an opportunity to try different things. So I've created programs that have enabled us to retain our employees, help them grow their careers here at Oracle. And that was what I had put in what my objectives were when I proposed my job, right? I had a proposal that said, here's what I think we could do. Here's the things that I think we can impact. And that's what I continue to deliver on.
So yeah, that is just so important. So thank you so much for sharing that. And then is there one thing, if for everybody watching, is there a call to action, like make sure you do this or make sure you remember this, or is there anything you'd like to leave everyone with who's watching so they can maybe, speak up a little more, be a bigger advocate for themselves and have a bigger impact for themselves and their organization?
Well, what I always tell folks is that when you think about your career, think of it as a job. And when I say job, what I mean is look for what brings you joy, look for opportunities to build your skill set, and know what brand it is that you want to be known for. So, like for me, I've had a lot of different jobs in my career. I started my career in finance, and then I moved to accounting, and then I realized that they really frown on creativity and finance, well, actually more in accounting. And I said, I don't look that great in yellow jumpsuits or orange jumpsuits, so I should probably change. My undergrad was marketing. I really wanted to move into marketing, but I didn't really have, I graduated with my master's in finance and moved immediately into a finance role. And I didn't have a lot of marketing experience and I wanted to move into marketing. So I did a lot of volunteer stuff. I volunteered for our United Way campaign and had the opportunity to kind of use some of that skill set to parlay into a job in marketing. And then, once I moved out of marketing and I moved into more of an operations function, I kind of missed the opportunity to engage with customers. And so I got more involved with our employee resource groups and partnerships with organizations like Athena here in San Diego and with Ascend for the professional Asian communities, right? And that enabled me to kind of build my network outside of Oracle. So that created other opportunities for me. And then the brand that, just know what brand it is that you want to be known for, that people know you for. And mine is really, to run a program and to be able to execute. So I can translate that from whether it's running a sales program to running an employee program or running a marketing program. I can put a program together and I can execute on the program. So I think that's the important thing is, treat your career like a job. Know what brings you joy. When you're no longer finding joy, look for opportunities to kind of build on the skill set and volunteer. Raise your hand often. That's what I always tell people is raise your hand often for special projects, even if they're outside your comfort zone, because that's where you'll grow and that's where you'll build your network and build your reputation that you can do more than what you're currently doing.
Yeah, so important. And I want to also piggyback on something that you said that's so important. And you said to just, know your brand, know what you're good at, know what you love, but you also have to talk about it.
Yeah.
Because if you're amazing at putting programs together, it's really important to be as prolific as you can about, oh, I'm so excited at this, and then we launched it and it went bananas, it did this. And then, it's over here. And I mean, just talking about it is just so important because then you'll be not just clear on it, but then you'll be top of mind. So when something comes up and they're like, oh, we need to build out this program and make sure it's executed, you're like, oh, Susan, that no one's going to know if we don't talk about it. So what you said is so important. And I would just like to encourage everyone who's listening to think about where your passion meets your area of expertise and to be even more vocal. And like the title of this today, to speak up and advocate for yourself even more. Susan, thank you so much for your time today. There was so much wisdom shared. I look forward to continuing to follow your journey at Oracle and beyond.
Thank you so very much. It was a pleasure.